It's that time once again to talk about the Yu-Gi-Oh! Forbidden and Limited list, and we're going to be talking about the late July into early August Forbidden and Limited list prediction. Now, I do want to note we do have a YCS coming up next month on August 14th to the 16th. That is YCS Montreal, Quebec, and this is going to be very interesting because it's either release it now or wait till after this YCS. Like the last Forbidden and Limited list predictions, I'm going to be excluding a few sets from this one, which is anything that released after May the 18th, 2026, as that was the last Forbidden Unlimited list the TCG received, which is Battle Legends Glorious Gallery, Ultimate Tournament Pack 1, Winners Pack 2026 to 2027, and even Chaos Origins. Along with those sets, now that we've received the set list for the Legendary Arc 5 decks, there's cards that I'm going to be excluding from it as well, being cards like Drone Lockbird, Call by the Grave, Triple Tactic Talent, and Crossout Designator. So if you were expecting cards like Anti-Spell Fragrance, The Fallen, the Virtuous, and Call by the Grave to be on here, you are out of luck. So on top of that, I will be also dodging core set secret rares like Fardralis Harmonia, Fallen of the White Dragon, and Elf Note Regina, because that would be anti-consumer friendly to the TCG in general. Now, the last thing to mention is both Mindmaster and Elder Entity Norden. Now, the OCG recently on their July 1st of 2026 Forbidden Unlimited list put both of these cards back to one with an errata, and both of the erratas changed the effects on how they are, and they're going to be releasing in the OCG's utility selection set that they're going to be getting at the beginning of August. Now, we don't know when we're going to get these erratas in the future, but they are actually really useful to the cards themselves, where Mindmaster is now a hard once per turn, and you could pay 800 to tribute a psychic monster you control, including itself now, to special summon one level 4 or lower psychic monster from your deck in attack position. And then you also have Elder Entity Norden, that is a hard once per turn once again, and when this card is special summoned from the extra deck, you can target a level 4 or lower monster in your graveyard to special summon it, but the effects negated also banish it when it leaves the field. Both are going to be really useful cards when they are on a both will be really useful cards when their errata comes to the TCG, but I definitely think it's going to be later than what we're going to be getting now. And the last thing happens to be the errors that are happening within Yu-Gi-Oh! Neuron. Now, this is because players probably have the wrong Forbidden Limited list selected when they're going into or registering their decks for an event, which pops up the wrong Forbidden Limited list. People are passing these off as fake Forbidden Limited lists that it's going to be applied in the future, but all of these hits are within Master Duel, and honestly, it's very sad to see that people are trying to pass these off as a fake leak. And with the explanation out of the way for my predictions for the late July, early August Forbidden Limited list, let's get right into it and talk about my decisions. The first thing I want to do to get it out of the way are all the cards that I want to see come back to 3. Now, there's way too many to even mention in this list, but you have cards like Unchained Soul of Shavara, Summon Sorceress, Pearly Sleepy Memory, Premature Burial, Nashiri's Sacred Tree, then other cards like Fiendsmith, Lacrima, Pearly Delicious Memory, Infernity Launcher, Striker Dragon, and Divine Wind of Mist Valley. A lot of cards currently on the Forbidden Limited list, more on the limited and semi-limited section, can go to 3 because they're just rotting away, just being there while no one uses them, like the Pearly cards, Infernity Launcher, Divine Wind of the Mist Valley, and even Naturia's Sacred Tree. And then you have a lot of one-ofs like Premature Burial, Summon Sorceress, Fiendsmith, Lacrima, and even Striker Dragon still being limited for who knows why. And even to help sales with the new Unchained cards, you have Unchained Soul of Shavara that should have been unlimited months ago that is still semi-limited for whatever reason. But this is just a lot of the cards that I would like to see come back to 3 finally, because realistically, some of these decks can't compete with the current meta, and other cards here, they aren't really as good as they once were back 10 years ago. I originally didn't know how to present this Forbidden Limited list, either going from unlimited to semi-limited to limited to forbidden, or talk about each archetype independently, and I think I landed on talking about each archetype independently because it would be better just to go over each of them one by one and talk about all my respective opinions for the decks themselves. First off, I want to talk about Cool Tune, the format leader since the last Forbidden Limited list, and since then they've accumulated 31.35% of the tops from this past format, and that's from May 18th, 2026 all the way to the World Championship qualifiers from a few weekends ago. Now, in my honest opinion, looking at Cool Tune itself, there isn't really much to hit outside of the names of the actual deck itself. If you hit the hand traps, there's no points because you can just replace them with other hand traps outside of things like Effect Veiler, but that's sometimes fine. Turn. So I want to see both Cool Tune Rotary and Cool Tune Synchro get limited on the next Forbidden Limited list. The main reason for this is because it follows what the OCG ideology did, but also on top of that, it hurts the consistency of the deck that puts it down lower than what it is currently. Now, we don't have Beyond the Brave yet, or the Limit Over collection cards being imported, which are going to be very soon, but also on top of that, we're still waiting on the Prismatic Summons box, so we're waiting on so many cards to get imported that this card would probably nestle down at a tier 1.5 to tier 2. Cool Tune Synchro allows you to dodge a lot of targeting effects, and on top of that, just allows you to use any of your monsters on your board during the opponent's turn for a synchro summon as a quick synchro, and you can use up to 2 of them per turn, so most of the time you're going to be setting 1 to 2 of them and then passing the turn with a ready built board. And then Cool Tune Rotary, we all definitely can agree on this. A lot of people don't really use the graveyard effect, but they use it for the additional normal summon, which is absolutely crazy because they have 4 normal summons about, and also this card allows you to look at your opponent's hand to get free knowledge and perfect information, and on top of that, then you could search out a Cool Tune spell or trap card, which really does quite a bit for the deck. So limiting both of these really hinders a lot of the grind gaming options that the deck has going forward, but it'll still make it a very potent control deck as they shift their building to other pieces and using other cards to help assist the losses that they have. So next up, I want to talk about Branded. This is a deck that's taking 16.36% of topping list from this past format, and I want to talk about this real quick. Now, Fallen of the Virtuous is a card that I originally had on my Forbidden Limited list predictions until it received an Ultimate Rare in Ultimate Tournament Pack 1. Now, this is a thing where it changed my trajectory of what I wanted to hit. So the first thing I want to talk about happens to be Albion the Branded Dragon. This card is a potential card that could see a forbidden status in the future because it actually hinders the engine itself and also the deck. A lot of players are using this card in branded variants just to fusion summon out interruptions or Mirror Jade, or just ways to stop the opponent from playing. So hitting Albion the Branded Dragon would be really useful. We've seen time and time again being able to summon Kaios the Star Source Dragon on the opponent's turn is really powerful, being able to pop 2 cards on the board. And then if this card is sent to the graveyard during the end phase, you could set or add a branded spell or trap card from your deck to your hand. A lot of players are using this and the Dragon that Devours the Dogma, sending the Dogma first to get a search of the Fallen of the Virtuous during the end phase, but then you use the Fallen of the Virtuous to pop a monster you control, most likely Fallen of Albaz or Fallen of the White Dragon, so you can set another copy of Fallen of the Virtuous for either a Monster Reborn like effect or a type of disruption, sending whatever you need to the graveyard for another form of board breaking on the opponent's turn. Now, this card I definitely see getting banned in the future because it hurts not only the deck for Branded, but it hurts the engine itself, and it also hurts things like Branded in High Spirit. But for the next card I want to talk about, it happens to be Branded in High Spirit. I've been playing a lot of Light and Darkness Ritual and against a lot of Branded. This card is absolutely crazy because any of your cards, Skull Archfiend of Chaos, Griffo, the Foolos, your just any spellcaster, any dragon, is full combo during draw phase to search out the Fallen of the White Dragon. Now, this is absolutely insane because honestly, just any way to get into that card makes it where the whole entire engine goes live. So that's why I think Branded in High Spirits is going to get limited because of how much utility it brings to any deck that runs it. Sure, it's a good card and you can only use 1 effect per turn, but I find myself sometimes when I activate this card in Light and Darkness Ritual that I'm adding it back with my Magician of Dark Chaos, Black Chaos, so I can set it in the spell and trap card zone as a bluff against the opponent. Overall, I definitely think that this is a very powerful card and it's had its time coming to get hit in some way, shape, or form, but I definitely think it's going to be sooner or later because having any deck allow access into Fallen of the White Dragon just off of a card during the draw phase could be a little too much, but if you draw the one of, you definitely draw the one of, and I won't bat an eye at that. Next up, we're going to be talking about Power Patron. Now, this is the whole entire spectrum of Elf Note, Doomsday, Power Patron, and Art Mage, so everything that is tied to Medeus the Pure. Medeus the Pure is the current lore series, and we have the Ars Magia cards coming out in Beyond the Brave, and we're probably going to see the final battle of them for Immortal Phoenix. So I definitely think a lot of the core functionality are going to stay where they are, but on top of that, I definitely think that they're going to hit cards indirectly into the themes themselves. So first off is to take care of the Power Patron FTK, one of them, and that is Super Dreadnought Rail Cannon Gustav Max getting limited, and really that's enough to say because they summon this card 4 times through a whole entire combo, summoning out multiple copies just to burn 8,000 damage. But outside of that, let us talk about one of the combos that the deck does with the Amorphage monsters, and that happens to be banning Amorphage Lechery. Now, if you guys don't remember, this card, while you control another Amorphage monster, neither player can activate spell cards or effects, and once per turn during your standby phase, you tribute one monster or destroy this card. And this is when it's in the scale and you control another Amorphage monster like Amorphage Sloth or Goliath. Now, this is pretty much an anti-spell fragrance Imperial Order type card where it blocks out a lot of the board breakers in the format, like the Fallen of the Virtuous, Super Polymerization, Illusion Gate, and the list goes on. So banning this card would clear that whole entire mess up where they want to lock the opponent from playing, which is not really fun. But since the lore is still going on, I definitely think that they want to be cautious of what they want to hit, so hitting the deck indirectly first makes a lot of sense. And finally, it's a card that's very iffy about hitting because the lore is still going on and it searches out any Dark Fairy in the game by sending a Power Patron from the deck or extract to the graveyard, because I kind of want to see Prohibited Power Patron Portal Terminus be limited. Now, every single one of these decks, they run 3 copies of it because it searches out Medea's Tapir, or even the big bad, the Voidilium, the Unstable Power Patron of Unity, just to search them out so they can use the effect to pop themselves to either make all level 12 Power Patrons gain 5,000, or be able to summon out a Power Patron from the graveyard and just being able to search out any of your Power Patron cards from your deck to your hand. Overall, this is one of the best cards in the whole entire Power Patron pile of the decks because it gets to all your Power Patron monsters, but on top of that, just being able just to hit this card down the 1 makes them where they have to run more of the level 12 Dark Fairy for consistency purposes, just so they can get to the copy of this card as much as they can, and it really affects them if they get hit by a Droll and Lockbird, or if the one of gets hit by like an Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring. Next up, the deck I want to talk about is Mitsurugi, who's taking 4.99% of tops. Now, this is a deck that's seen play ever since its release in Supreme Darkness with the Ryzeal strategy, and over the years we've seen it change and adapt into the pure version that it is now. While it's still being played with Ryzeal, we could see players using it with Azamina on top of other decks like Mathmech, or even the whole entire branded engine, and even with Light and Darkness Ritual. Now, realistically, banning Amino Habakiri no Mitsurugi could be the right way to do things, but I feel like Konami wants to keep this intention, especially with the recent release of the Ragged Ritual of Rites from Chaos Origins, and also with the brand new Demise, the End Ruler card that's coming out in the Magnificent Monsters set. So realistically, my hit for the deck happens to be one of their grind game pieces that they can recur with Kusanagi, being Mitsurugi Prayers. Being able to have an optional tribute for cost is absolutely insane, especially for a deck like this that either adds a Mitsurugi monster from your deck to your hand, which is just a reinforcement of the army, or you take 800 damage so you can special summon a Mitsurugi monster from your hand or graveyard. So it's just an emergency teleport with the cost, or a premature burial on a quick play spell that could be activated in the draw phase. Now, the OCG does have this card at 1, and Master Duel has both Prayers and Habakiri, I believe, limited, and the deck still performs quite well. Now, I definitely think that Mitsurugi Prayers is the option that Konami is going to go after, because there's not really much they could do in hitting Mitsurugi outside of banning names or limiting other cards as well to hurt the consistency. But in my honest opinion, Mitsurugi is one of the more fairer decks nowadays, and putting this card down to 1 would definitely put it in check with many of the current archetypes that are being released. The next deck we're going to be talking about is Sky Striker. This is a deck that's taking 3.83% of tops in the current format, and we saw that Ryan Yu took first place with it at the North American World Championship qualifier. Now, this card has had multiple other tops that same weekend at Oceania, Europe and also the North American event. And realistically, I would like to see Sky Striker Mobilizing Engage Limited, but the problem is it's going to be in Magnificent Monsters with an alternate art, so I feel like that they're not going to hit it at all, so it wouldn't really affect the sales of players trying to get the Starlight version of the card that is going to be in the promotional pack. But there is one card that they could hit in the deck that is actually very crucial for their drawing engine, and that happens to be Radiant Typhoon Vision. This is a card that I possibly think is going to get limited in the future. A lot of players thought it was going to get limited all the way back at the start of the year because of how powerful it is than it was in Rarity Collection 5. This card allows you to draw 2 cards, then if you have a Radiant Typhoon card or a quick play spell in your hand, discard one of them, or you just discard your whole hand, or you could just add a MST from your deck to your hand, or even from your graveyard to your hand. Now, I made a short about this card about hitting it in the past, and a lot of players were like, no, it's fine, it's definitely a good draw card, but not limit worthy. But we've had decks from Sky Striker, Radiant Typhoon, the native deck that it's a part of, Memento, and just so many other decks playing this because of the consistency that it gives during the draw phase, being able to draw 2 cards, and then allowing you just to be able to discard whatever you need. Now, I've even seen this card be played in Malice because of the Radiant Typhoon engine, and I could definitely think that this is probably one card that Konami's looking at that they could possibly hit on the next Forbidden Unlimited list. But outside of limiting Radiant Typhoon Vision, they still have Pot of Desires and Upstart Goblin to get their draws, and even 3 copies of Sky Striker Mobilize Engage to get your searching and drawing out of the way. So I think Radiant Typhoon Vision is definitely worth the hit at the end of the day. Even though we've talked about decks like Mitsurugi, Sky Striker, and even all the Power Patron decks that are out there, I want to talk about Malice, even though that they're taking 3.51% of topping lists. Now, this is because there's not really much that you need to do to the deck outside of maybe 1 to 2 changes, and a lot of players are talking about Protect Code Talker getting forbidden because it allows you to do a lot of neat things with Charmer, Quartet, and Blue, Charmer, Quartet, and Bloom, and also Zena's Deceiving Doll Maidens. Now, this card, while it's on the field, your opponent cannot target Link 4 or higher monsters you control with card effects, and they cannot be destroyed by battle. But while this card's in the graveyard, quick effect, you can banish Link monsters from your graveyard that equal exactly 3, only if you control a Firewall Link monster to special summon this card from your graveyard. So a lot of times you're using the Protect Code Talker and the Firewall Dragon to go into Zena's Deceiving Doll Maidens, or you're going from the Zena and Protect Code Talker into a copy of Charmer, Quartet, and Bloom because you're sending a copy of Spell Canceller from your deck to the graveyard. Now, this also allows you, with the Quartet and Bloom targeting the Spell Canceller and the Zena, to summon them back both to the field, shutting off all spell cards in the entire game. Now, I do see Spell Canceller getting banned, but also Protect Code Talker could get banned as well because there are lines around it so you can regain the link materials that you're missing in the Malice strategy and in other strategies as well. So I definitely think that both Protect Code Talker and Spell Canceller are good choices to get banned going into the future for, again, the health of the game. Next up, we're going to be talking about the generic cards that I want to see put onto the Forbidden Unlimited list, and a lot of these are just, over time, they've definitely overstayed their welcome, and just personal opinions over the past few months. And of course, the first one we have to talk about is number 41, Baguska, the Terribly Tired Tapir. Now, this card was reprinted in the modern decks back in March, but I definitely think it's time for these cards to go, especially with the brand new Lunalight support, adding extra insulation to their already built board of double Liger Dancer, soon to be triple Liger Dancer if they could pull it off. This card, while in defense position, turns all monsters that could be affected to defense position and negate their effects. Even though that Link monsters are cards, it's definitely worth saying that they don't really get affected, but when this card is in attack position, your opponent cannot target monsters you control with card effects, which gives you an upper advantage if you're playing to win the game that turn. Now let's keep the Forbidden train going, and honestly, with a lot of FTKs coming up and also with decks still bridging into Fiendsmith, I think that Reproducus might be a very good choice to ban now, especially with a lot of the Hydro Drive FTKs that are going to be happening in the future. Now, this card can change any monster it points to from its type or attribute, so a lot of decks that have light monsters or fiend monsters can summon this card, so they can convert it into a light fiend either way. but in some FTKs, this card's used just to fix a lot of the attributes or typings of monsters, so you can access specific link monsters for those FTKs, especially if you can find in the Hydra Drive FTK with Black Garden and many others. So banning this card now would definitely save a lot of hassle in the future, and I definitely have to say that this card has always kind of been a problem, especially with the arch nemesis monsters in the past, as we've seen. Next up, we have a duo of monsters being Majesty Fiend and Vanity's Fiend. Now, these two had a whole entire video talking about them a few weeks ago about all floodgates in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! As these two ruin a lot of fun for players, especially going against Clown Crew and just a few other decks here and there. Majesty's Fiend being a light fiend you can use for a Fiendsmith track target, so you can stun out the opponent because neither player can activate monster effects, and being able to do a quick effect to tribute this card on the opponent's turn is absolutely insane. And with Vanity's Fiend being able where neither player can special summon monsters is absolutely crazy because it locks out both players from special summoning monsters until they're removed off the field. Now, sure, there's a lot of removal in the game, like Illusion Gate, Raigeki, Dark Hole, and the list that goes on, like Fallen of the Virtuous. A lot of times they're backed by a fully built board, especially in Clown Crew or even Fiendsmith. But realistically, I definitely think that it's time for these two cards to get sunsetted. And now the final card is a card that a lot of players have been asking to get limited for quite some time, and maybe even another card with it. We have Dimensional Fissure. Now, any monster sent to the graveyard is banished instead, and a lot of players really don't like this card because it facilitates a gameplay where a lot of cards get banished, where they need to go to the graveyard. A lot of cards can't activate because they need to hit the graveyard, and it hurts a lot of current meta decks, and it only gives advantage to decks that are stun-like or control-like, or if you're Malice, or if you're banish reliant. Now, realistically, a lot of players have been wanting this card hit in both Genesis format on Master Duel, I think, and even in the TCG because of how annoying it could be going up against a full board with a Dimensional Fissure just on the field, which has happened quite a bit. And also in Draco Tail format, this was one of the cards that Draco players had to be wary of because all their cards need to hit the graveyard for their effects to activate. So I think it's finally time to hit Dimensional Fissure to 1, but they could probably hit Macrocosmos to 1, but I think they have further plans with Macrocosmos going into the future. And finally, we're going to be taking a look at the cards that I think will come off the Forbidden Limited list to being limited because I think it's time for them to come off. And the first one happens to be Original Sinful Spoil Snake Eye. With the next Chronicle anime starting in August being around Sinful Spoil and Diabellstar, it would make a lot of sense for the TCG finally to peel this card off. Now, we don't have cards like Apollosa, Bow of the Goddess, Baron de Fleur, or even Borreload Savage legal anymore, so the end board of Snake Eye is quite weak, and we saw it especially at the YCS in December of 2024, where Ryziel and Malice took over everything, and Snake Eye had a very slim margin compared to what it normally had. So putting Original Simple Spoil Snake Eye to 1 would be perfectly fine, especially with Genesis just putting it now from 100 to 17 points. And then we also had Master Duel putting it to 3, which means we might see more Snake Eye support in the future. So expect more Pyro Trees coming in the future for this whole entire archetype, which is going to be very interesting to see how they're going to support the deck. The next card to talk about is MX Saber Invoker, and a lot of players have been expecting this card to come off the Forbidden Limited list, especially after the January 1st, 2024 Forbidden Limited list where they banned Isolde, Two Tails of the Noble Knights, because this was one of the cards that players used to go from any two warriors into that whole entire combo. Now, since Isolde has been banned, a lot of warrior decks hasn't really been functioning, and a lot of decks really don't care about MX Saber Invoker right now. And we also have Dark Time Wizard coming out that kind of needs this card because you can take 2 level 3 monsters to go into your brand new Panther Warrior. This card would have been amazing for Argo Star to have, but also on top of that, the new X Saber support was released in the beginning of this year, and it didn't have MX Saber Invoker, which it kind of needs it because the new I think it's Perlina needs Invoker because she is a 1 card that can get into this card so you can access the rest of your engine. So missing out on this simple Exceed monster is really harsh, and I definitely hope that this card finally comes off the Forbidden Limited list because it's been rotting on it since 2018, which is absolutely crazy to think about. Now, this next one up on the list is a card that I had a rant about the other day in Yu-Gi-Oh! Organization, and that happens to be Wind-Up Carriers and Matey. This card's still currently forbidden after about 13 years on the Forbidden Limited list, while this card has been at 3 in the OCG ever since 2015. Sure, they hit it down to 1 in 2020, but it did absolutely nothing. Now, with Wind-Up Hunter still being legal, it does have a little caveat of a hand loop, but realistically, no one's playing wind-ups in 2026, no one played wind-up in 2025, and you keep ticking down the clock, no one has played wind-up since 2015. Even after their new support from Flame of Destructions, only a handful of players played it, and realistically thinking about it, why have a deck like Inzektor be at full power and they don't do anything, and you still have a card like Wind-Up Carries and Matey still locked up? I definitely think it's time for Wind-Up Carriers and Matey to finally come off the Forbidden Limited list, and if you put it to 3, it's not going to do anything. Now, there are going to be the replay channel combo Andes that are going to hand loop the opponent every single time with the deck, but realistically, it's weak to every single hand trap in the current game, and we have a lot of cards that trigger when they're sent to the graveyard from the hand, and realistically, I definitely think that this card isn't as good as it once was, especially with the wind-up hand loop. And finally, we're going to be taking a look at Print Kids Meow Meow Mew. Now, this is a card that has been on the Forbidden Limited list for over the past 4 years, while the OCG never banned it in the first place, because honestly, Print Kids and the power creep really caught up to them quite fast. Sure, this card made every single Print Kid monster a 1-card starter, but it would just end on a Battle Butler that could trigger twice, or even a Rip Roaring Roaster twice as well, being a double Raigeki or double Feather Duster. But realistically nowadays, with how things have been going with new Adamancipator support and new Magnet support, it would be much appreciated to see Print Kids Meow Meow Mew return off the Forbidden Limited list. This happens to be one of the many cards that a lot of players have recently been asking to come off the Forbidden Limited list because they kind of missed the deck and they want to play with it once again, even though that in Genesis you can't play it because you're missing half your extra deck from your Link monsters. Overall, I definitely think that this card's time has come to come off the Forbidden Limited list, because nowadays Print Kids lose to a single Purulia, a Fulos, Nibiru, and even with the Adventure engine, they don't have enough power to actually deal with a lot of the board breakers we have now today. After sitting on this product for the past 12 days of not knowing how to present this video, this is how I ended up presenting it. Now, this has been my whole entire predictions for the late July into August Forbidden Limited list. Now it's most likely going to be an August Forbidden Limited list because it's July 30th as I'm recording this, and I do hope that we do get the next Forbidden Limited list in a timely manner before YCS Montreal that's taking place in the middle of the month. Now, I hope you guys do agree with a lot of my changes and a lot of my theories on what will and won't get hit from what sets, but tell me down below your personal expectations on the Forbidden Limited list, as I'm here to hear everyone's opinion and not start arguments. But anyways, I've been BoltSpider. I hope you guys did enjoy, and see you guys in the next video. Thank you for watching this video. If you guys did enjoy it, hit that like button down below. And if you want to see future content from my channel, hit that subscribe button as well. And YouTube is really stingy on things, so hit that notification bell to get notified whenever I upload. And I would like to give a shout out to my channel members, FGH, for helping support the channel. And if you want to do so as well, it's only 99 cents a month. You can also join the Discord server down in the description below. There's a link that is linked to it that you can join and talk to other users of the community. But anyways, thank you all for watching this video, and I will see you guys in the next video.